Today we're joined again with Jeff for part two, follow up. Jeff, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jeff Rutledge, the Chief Medical Officer at HealthTap, and delighted to connect with you too today to talk about the advances in digital health, in particular the prospects and the what's happening in virtual primary care.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Excited to have you on again.
Yep, exactly. Excited to have you on again. For those who didn't tune into our last episode, the link will be in the description. But last time we spoke with Jeff, we discussed HealthTap, kind of the origins and the foundings, but how primary care or access to primary care can really change patients' lives. And it's actually Jeff's personal mission to ensure every family, every patient in America has access to primary care physician. But also something that you noted, Jeff, something of interest is how HealthTap themselves are kind of experiencing a sort of an internal primary care physician shortage, representative of the larger systemic healthcare system in the United States. So just wanted to check in quickly. We know that we mentioned last week that HealthTap is currently starting contracts with retail providers to provide their primary care, virtual primary care services. Just want to check in. How are things going with that?
Well, and thanks for asking. I'm delighted to share some of the progress that we've been making. It's really been a very exciting time at HealthTap. You know, I started this company 15 years ago with the vision of bringing healthcare to mobile devices and using the technology to make healthcare more efficient and more effective. And it's really been quite a journey. It's wonderful to see now that after all this time, there's been a cultural change and a shift. You know, the pandemic in particular caused people to discover virtual care. Many people had not previously seen it before or experienced it for the first time during the pandemic. And even more important, doctors for the first time were encouraged to, and during the pandemic, they were forced to use virtual technology. So the doctors also discovered what was possible to do. In many ways, doctors had not previously considered the opportunity to use virtual care to help patients. What we're seeing from a business perspective, and as HealthTap is growing, that we're receiving inbound interest from many, many different areas, and we're actually pursuing and expanding in many. You mentioned the retail partnerships. We launched just last week the initial marketing campaigns with our Albertsons group companies. You know, Albertsons includes Vons and Safeway and Albertsons and multiple other grocery brands, many of whom have, or most of which actually have pharmacies in them. So there's a real need for healthcare and connecting their customers to physicians to deliver the services that their pharmacies provide. So it's a natural opportunity for them to enable their customers to access a doctor virtually, particularly in the context when they need ongoing care and refills and medication supplies. You know, as a company, we're also seeing multiple other areas of interest. We have inbound interest in our launching our services in cooperation with provider systems, where we become the virtual primary care opportunity for healthcare systems that are looking to expand their primary care footprint. We're seeing expansion in other companies. We're seeing DME suppliers have a need. They have people coming looking for and who need particular DME supplies, who don't have a doctor and who need healthcare, and they're able to get that virtually and get those prescriptions for the DME devices delivered. And so, as I say, it's really an exciting time at HealthTap.
Wow, that's amazing. It sounds like there's lots of distribution channels that have opened up. You mentioned also inbound interest. Has that been physicians trying to join HealthTap, or is it maybe a mix of that and additional customers that want more virtual primary care?
In fact, it's both. We're seeing huge interest, you know, from a business perspective, expanding the business. We're seeing partners coming to us looking for how they can integrate with us to gain access to quality doctors who can take care of patients who have a particular healthcare need. But interestingly, as you point out, in order to expand, we need, of course, more doctors. And what we're seeing is that doctors are discovering the flexibility and the opportunities to be virtual physicians. And we're seeing word of mouth is happening, where the doctors working with us are sharing what they're doing with others. And so we're seeing increasing interests. I mean, I'm personally delighted with the fact that the virtual platform gives doctors the opportunity to have a flexible way to exercise their skills as physicians and to take care of patients without the kind of administrative and other overhead that occurs with positions inside health groups. We're seeing doctors who are not happy with the external pressure to focus on throughput with less time with patients, coupled with lots of hassles with administrative responsibilities, lots of concerns about the amount of time they're spending in the EHR outside of clinical time. And because the HealthTap platform is focused and efficient and able to let doctors just be doctors, it frees them from the burdens of many other administrative responsibilities and documentation hassles associated with other more complicated EHR systems. So I'm very pleased to report the doctors are finding it incredibly rewarding to deliver care on our platform because it lets them just focus on being doctors and gives them the opportunity to connect with their patients in ways that can actually be harder to do. It's a bit paradoxical and counterintuitive that seeing a person in the office would be a difficult way to connect with your patients, whereas virtually you would think there's the distance between the doctor and the patient. But in fact, the virtual connection provides an opportunity for doctors to connect even more personally and deeply. And what actually happens is the doctors have nothing else but the video feed with their patients. It's the only thing they have, and they're hyper focused on it, which allows them to listen to and pay attention to their patients in ways that are harder in the more distracted environment of the office. So again, doctors are feeding back to us saying this is a wonderful way to practice medicine. They're sharing it with their colleagues, and more doctors are hearing from other doctors about what it's like to practice medicine on the HealthTap platform. So we're actually seeing quite a lot of inbound interest from doctors, allowing us to grow and expand our doctor network.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like the merits of coming to work for you alone from a virtual care standpoint is attractive from a proof of concept standpoint. You mentioned some doctors are joining. They're like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Way better than, my office job as a primary care physician. They're telling their buddies are telling their buddies, sort of a butterfly effect that's going on. And it sounds like inbound, they're coming to you. You're not sort of outside pursuing them necessarily. What else has HealthTap tried that perhaps is more outbound or kind of interest generating, perhaps
Sure.
external vendors or strategies to kick it up a notch in terms of physician recruitment?
Well, obviously, we're pursuing and interested in multiple channels for finding doctors. We want the doctors to discover us through whatever channel they're using to look for the opportunities. And we have used traditional channels, advertising in the Physician Specialty Society journals, for example. We've used other organizations, Doximity as an example, who are reaching out to doctors and making positions available. But frankly, we're finding the basic platform in LinkedIn to be one of the most effective ways. More and more doctors are using that as a first stop to go to identify opportunities with us. And of course, people that hear about us for brand name recognition simply come to healthtap.com. And if you go to healthtap/jobs, you would immediately discover that we are actively recruiting for primary care doctors to join our practice group.
Yeah, the other area that's interesting to me is all the inbound interest. Close to 100,000 physicians that are in the network just answering questions, right? That patients have. I would love to hear more about that, and if you've been able to kind of survey folks and learn about why is that interesting for them. It's not something they're getting paid for. They're just able to go on there and with the abundant time that physicians have, kind of spend some of that extra time doing just answers and helping folks. That's almost a viral sort of thing where they've been coming in droves to answer those questions on the platform there.
Kyle, thanks for the question. In fact, historically, this is how we got started. We started the company so long ago, they didn't have video codecs allowing for high resolution video, and it was not possible to do video visits. And we started with a service saying, how can we help people get answers and help from doctors for their health concerns? We made it possible for people to ask questions of doctors and get answers from doctors. I invited doctors to participate, to answer those questions. And I think the success we had in recruiting or in inviting doctors to participate is a reflection of the fact that we care about doctors and we think about what motivates doctors and what drives doctors to do the things that they do. As a physician myself, I'm very proud of the opportunity the platform gives doctors to help others, and the reflection of how doctors really view their position in the world that is reflected by how they responded to that invitation. I said to doctors, you have the opportunity to share your knowledge with other people, and we will take that and consider it. We will value the answers that you give. We will keep them in a library, and when someone in the future asks a similar question, they'll be able to get the answer immediately from you. So doctors understood that not only were they helping the person who asked the question, but they were also contributing to a library that would help more and more people in the future. And doctors took great pride in this idea that helping one now would actually help multiple people over time. And it's been true. It's doctors continue to be impressed when a year, 2 years, 5 years after they gave an answer, they get another thank you note from a patient who saw their answer and appreciated it and sent the doctor a thank you note as a result of that. So we were very successful in getting doctors to participate against the advice and expectations of just about everyone, it seems. I mean, if I like to say, if I had a dime for every person who told me doctors would never answer questions for free, we wouldn't have needed investors. People were absolutely convinced that doctors wouldn't, but yet we understand doctors and understand that giving them an opportunity and an easy way to support and help others was something that would succeed. And doctors also responded to the opportunity to discover what people need. The doctors discovered that they could use the platform as a way of not only helping others, but helping themselves expand their own knowledge. Because what would happen is if a patient or someone asks a question that they didn't know the answer to, they view that as a challenge. Like, I should know the answers to questions my patients ask. If I see a question I don't know the answer to, that's something I need to go learn about. So we had doctors using the platform as a way of kind of keeping up. And when a question was asked they didn't know the answer to, they'd go learn about the answer just so they could help that one person, but they're helping themselves. And of course, we augmented that by offering CME to doctors. We created the product capability to do an internet search of the medical literature in the product in part of the workflow for answering a question. So if you see a question you don't know the answer to or you want to learn more about, you can on the spot do a search of the literature, read about it, learn something, answer the question, and get CME credit. Category 1 AMA PRA Category 1 CME credits available for free to the doctors who learned what they needed to know to answer the questions as part of the operation and the product. And that continues today. We continue to operate the free question and answer service. We don't have to pay the doctors, and we don't pay the doctors to answer the questions. And the library continues to grow. There are many millions, I think it's over 3 million answers now in the library of answers that doctors have given to questions people have asked.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And it sounds like the point there is you've tapped into what the doctors, what motivates them is this drive to help the patients and this drive to solve these learning opportunities, to grow these learning opportunities so that they can help more patients.
That's true. And there are multiple dimensions that doctors get value from. We're seeing, for example, doctors later in their careers use this as an opportunity not only to benefit patients from their experience, but also to stay current and stay involved, stay engaged, and continue to use the skills that they've acquired over many years.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Kyle.
And I think it also opens up to a lot more diversity than you might have in your own kind of patient base. When you open up to the whole internet in terms of patients that have questions, it definitely opens up a lot lot of interesting sort of challenges that you wouldn't see, in your own physical area or just in your own kind of panel of patients that you have. So I like that a lot. And offering CME makes a whole lot of sense in the incentive too. It's a lot more active than some other ways to get CME that I've seen out there, where it's more just kind of the physician and the content, and maybe answering questions from an article or something like that, or of course attending conferences and such. But this is actually patient facing, learning and answering questions and getting CME for it. I really like that from my own kind of continuing education background and side of it. That's awesome.
It's very much grounded in things that people care about. Rather than learning about an obscure disease that you'll very unlikely ever see in your career, which is what much learning is about, it confirms that these are issues of relevance to real people because they were questions asked by real people.
What it sounds like the foundations of HealthTap are very much mission driven. This mission to help patients or help answer every question every patient may have for generations and generations. What kind of calls to actions have you guys done, leveraging the existing physicians in your database to perhaps serve as a provider? Other examples, like a tiered financial incentive to get multiple licenses and multiple states, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, on the physician side, doctors are attracted to working on the platform because it lets them connect with patients and gives them great flexibility in organizing their time, which is a huge incentive. The incentive for additional licenses really, as you've suggested, is a way of expanding your practice. If you have more licenses, you become available to more people in more states, and that increases the rate at which your practice will grow because you can gain access to patients in multiple places. I think we have an average between 15 and 20 licenses per doctor for the doctors on our platform. And what that means is that when you want to select a doctor, you're not limited to the doctors just in one state with one state license, but rather all the doctors in the other states who also have a license in your state are available to you. So it expands the availability. One of the things that we think is important for patients is that they be able to find a doctor that matches the kind of doctor they're looking for. Whether it's young or old, or there's a racial preference or even a religious preference or an experience or a part of the country or a practice focus. These are all variables that people use as they look at and think through which kind of doctor would be the best doctor for them. I'm very proud of the fact that people are able to find a doctor that matches them and then confirm that match by having a longer visit when they first visit the doctor to go through a more comprehensive review of their past history and also get to know the doctor in a more meaningful way, which is the foundation of building trust in a relationship between patient and doctor. We might have talked about this last time, the importance of trust in the patient-doctor relationship. If patients trust their doctor, they're much more likely to follow through with recommendations for what the doctor suggests they do.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm excited to ask questions too, David.
Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, so I'd love to dive a little into that in terms of kind of where skill sets are going, right? So there's the core clinical skill sets that you would expect a doctor to have, and maybe specialty skill sets, things like that, depending on the type of care you're looking to deliver and ensuring that there's quality care. But beyond the pure kind of hard science clinical aspects of it, a lot of it really comes down to that. How do you build trust? How do you connect with people? Things like that. And kind of coming back to where do you see the best doctors directionally, and how do you look for those when you're recruiting in terms of those skill sets, right? What do you interview for, and what do you think is most important these days in a great sort of doctor for a virtual care setting?
You raised some really good points there, Kyle, and I'll address them head on, if you will. It is not enough to know everything there is to know about medicine, because there's knowledge and understanding of how people are and how people express themselves and how they express their experience of life and the symptoms that they have. The core of medical knowledge is required, but the experience of connecting with people and learning how people represent themselves and how this varies culturally and by the experience of the person is absolutely critical. The foundation of it is compassion and understanding coupled with experience. So if you start with, yes, we can look at where is the training, how much do they know, where did they go, what was their postgraduate training, what demonstration of quality of content or information do they have. But that is coupled with the the opportunity to learn, the experience that they've had. And it has to be driven by a fundamental desire of doctors to be compassionate providers of care, to actually want to be a good doctor connecting with people. So to answer your question more directly, what do we look for in the interview process? We're looking for doctors who want to be real doctors, doctors who think that what motivates them is connecting with people and helping them over time lead healthier, happier lives. And a doctor who sees their role as engaging with their patients to encourage them to lead a healthy life, and the doctors who gain satisfaction out of seeing people thrive are doctors who are going to be successful on our platform. There are other opportunities, particularly in the online world, for doctors who want to maximize their revenue with the shortest amount of time, and who want to, if you will, turn the crank on the production machine for earning more money in the shortest period of time. Those doctors are typically less interested in spending the time to get to know someone and connect with their patients and get to know them and develop that bond of trust. And fundamentally, we're looking for doctors who understand they can make a good living with comparable income and be a really good doctor using the virtual platform. And this is where the most positive feedback comes from. We've been successful in identifying and recruiting doctors who meet those criteria, and they're the ones who appreciate our platform the most. So by picking those doctors up front, we're optimizing. I've always said, by the way, you can't have happy patients unless you have happy doctors. There's some synergy of the two together. And if the doctor's not happy, the patient will feel it. It's astonishing to me how much people reflect on the unstated or implied attitude, behavior, and emotional content of the physician's mindset at the time of a visit. And, I invite doctors to look in the mirror when their patients are unhappy with them, because that's usually where the source is. And as I say, I've been very thrilled with the success we've had in finding doctors who want to be real doctors, and then listening to them as they say, hey, this is really wonderful because I get to be the doctor I want to be. And by the way, you only have to spend time during your clinic hours. You don't have hours after clinic of other responsibilities and documentation hassles to deal with, because we built a platform that's more efficient. It makes it possible for doctors to complete the tasks for each patient using the platform during their assigned clinical hours.
Golden. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, the happy physician for a happy patient reminds me of a story when I was in college and I went in for an appointment. The doctor had just gotten back from, I think, an extended vacation. I was one of his first patients coming back. But I think he was already maybe down a little bit for not being in, Hawaii or anymore. But I said, yeah, recently I've been feeling kind of tired and this kind of thing. And he goes, oh, so depression. I was like, maybe. I guess. This was just a funny jump to, kind of immediate conclusion, maybe a little bit of a projection of his own experience.
Let me share an anecdote I had that was one of the bases that sort of led me to understand how important it is for doctors to be introspective and understand where they're coming from when they interact with their patients. I recall in the early years of my residency, postgraduate training, where we were being asked to work insane hours. I mean, it was just all day, all night, all the next day, every other rotation. After months of this, it was really wearing. And I was working at the VA hospital where I had a VA outpatient clinic, and I had a number of patients, and they would I could charitably characterize them as unhappy individuals with multiple chronic medical problems who were grumpy and dissatisfied with the VA service. And from my perspective, many of these patients were sort of disgruntled and difficult. And then I had an experience where I had a joyous event. I won't share all the details, but it was in the middle of a work week. I had this experience that just lifted my spirits and made me a happy person. And I went into my clinic and I saw the same patients in the same way. And I expressed my joy to them and they responded with joy back to me. And it was really a wonderful experience of how much we bring into the doctor-patient relationship that enables our patients. It's up to us to inspire our patients to be happy. And if we're grumpy and they're grumpy, it doesn't go anywhere. By contrast, if we can bring joy and happiness and project optimism to our patients, that they will respond in a similar way. And I feel very powerfully that doctors bring to the interaction something, can have the opportunity to bring to the interaction something very positive.
Yeah, I think that's how humans are made. Really, is that social element has extreme healing power, in itself, through joy, and that's really great. So maybe not the physician that I gave an example of, but I looked at the jobs page. Let's say I have 50 friends who are great doctors, and they're thinking, "Wow, hey, let me join HealthTap." What there's one kind of mega posting for multi-state licensed physician. If I brought 50 to you, or more or less, what do you think, sort of growth trajectory, how many kind of physicians and what kind of physicians would you hire right now, or maybe this year, if you had a pool?
Our focus as a company is on primary care. So we have 2 clinics. We have a virtual primary care clinic where doctors sign up to build a virtual practice. They have practice hours and they build a panel of patients. We actually compensate the doctors based on the size of the panel that they're managing, because we expect them to respond to text messages from their patients in between visits. And so they earn both from the visit revenue for each visit they have with their patients, and they are expected to inspire trust and confidence in their patients. Their patients want to stay with them. We're seeing huge success in people who say, "Wow, I've got a doctor now who knows me and that's actually available to me, and I can see them over time." So that's one. That's the primary care clinic. We also have an urgent care clinic. And the urgent care clinic allows people with emergency medicine or urgent care center background, or family medicine, or internal medicine. We're now increasingly also adding pediatrics, so that pediatric primary care can be there. And so doctors that want to have the ability to step away from the practice or work part-time or be on a less engaged manner can schedule time and just be in the urgent care clinic without responsibilities for their patients between times. We're looking for the same quality of doctors and the same ability to connect and make their patients feel cared for in both clinics. But again, in the primary care clinic, that's where the doctors are creating relationships and establishing them over time. In terms of our business, we're planning at this point to back up. We have just gone through a hiring wave to triple the size of our previous medical clinic. I think it's going to double again before the end of the year. So our ability to expand is hugely important to us. Our ability to bring more doctors into the medical group, the practice group, we're calling it now, it continues. And as I say, with these various partnerships rolling out, the biggest challenge we have in managing growth is to make sure we have enough doctors in place in time for the expanded traffic that we're seeing. If either occurs too quickly, then you get an imbalance. We can't hire a number of doctors and then not have the patients. We can't have the patients suddenly arrive and not have enough doctors. So we're managing. That's the biggest challenge we face as a company, managing the 2 factors at the same time.
So, long story short, I'll bring all 50 of my friends. It seems like you'll need them, especially for the new retail partnerships and everything coming on board.
And we'd be delighted to interview them and bring them on board. We have an expedited and streamlined process to do that. Our platform's incredibly easy to learn how to use, so we're able to get doctors on board pretty quickly. The credentialing step, we've also optimized the process so we can get doctors, if they've completed their CAQH profile already, we can get doctors on board in 1 to 2 weeks.
Wow. That's pretty fast. So yeah, I would imagine if I had a burning desire to see a doctor and there was no doctors, I might get pissed off and not use HealthTap. Might complain to my boss at Albertsons or whomever at Albertsons. So I can see the rush for the, you mentioned 3x and now 6x, your original endpoint. You also mentioned software capabilities. It sounds like you guys have a pretty robust kind of streamlined onboarding process. I'm curious how you guys are managing multi-state credentialing with your current capabilities. You mentioned 15 to 20 licenses per doctor on average, multiplied by the number of doctors and different patients and healthcare professionals. It can get complicated quickly.
Well, it's one of the interesting challenges of managing staffing, because particularly in the urgent care clinic, where at any point in time, a patient could come to us from any state, and we need to make sure there's multiple doctors in that state available at that moment. So you can have 4 doctors with overlapping states, but if they miss out some states, having 4 doctors on at once might not be enough if there's nobody who has an Arkansas license, and now you have Arkansas patients. So making sure we have the urgent care clinic staffed with doctors that span all the states is one of the processes that we have in place. And there's various solutions to how to make that easier, which we've been doing this for a number of years now, so we have some expertise in figuring out how to optimize the staffing of the urgent care clinic to match the volume expected with every state. In terms of credentialing, what happens is when a doctor joins us, we look at the states they have and when they want to work, and we look at the states that would optimally improve our coverage, and then we ask the doctors to actively pursue additional state licenses to improve the coverage through the urgent care clinic in particular. It's less of an issue in primary care clinic because there's no need for immediacy. The doctor creates a schedule into which patients can book themselves. And so if they have enough state licenses to have their schedule full, that works fine. They don't have to be available every hour of every day. They just have to have a schedule that lets people find them and schedule visits with them.
And to that point, let's use that Arkansas patient. If you have a ton of doctors who have Alabama licenses, but you have a sudden surge of Arkansas demand, how do you incentivize the new flood of doctors to get an Arkansas license?
Well, of course, we actively hire doctors that already have an Arkansas license. That's the first step. Depending on, for each state is either in the Interstate Medical Licensing Compact or not. If they're in the IMLC, that's very straightforward. It just takes a couple of weeks for a doctor to get additional state licenses. And in many cases, we're simply proactively maximizing these states that each doctor has to get ahead of this problem before it occurs. And then finally, what typically happens is we embark on new partnerships with entities that will bring us volume in a known state. We have some advance warning of when the patients in that other state are going to come, which allows us to inspect our capacity by state and then hire into or license up existing doctors to match that state.
Got it. So it starts from the supply side. You need Arkansas doctors, you hire Arkansas doctors. You get a sudden surge of demand from a certain state. You look for people who can take care of those patients. I want to circle back to the kind of the existing Q&A service and people who are already kind of engaged on your platform. I'm curious what the conversion success has been from people who are kind of just answering questions on the platform to becoming an employee of HealthTap, what that conversion is like.
It's interesting. I'm very proud of the relationship we have and the good name that we've created among doctors who've done that. When you look at the network of the nearly 100,000 doctors, U.S. licensed doctors that have with us, they actually span 147 different specialties. And the specialty of the doctors in the network matches the frequency of that specialty in the country. And so you see a preponderance of family medicine, internal medicine, pediatrics, OBGYN, surgery, etc. So the docs who are in the network span the gamut. We have reached out to them first and given them the opportunity to join us. And many of the doctors in our medical group have been with us for a long time, starting initially as the Q&A doctors. At this point, we may have, since all of them have been given the opportunity to apply to become, the reality is many doctors are quite happy with their lives. They have jobs that they enjoy in communities where they're established and have practices. We're not trying to pull them out from their existing practices, but we do make the opportunity to join us available. And we've had a number of doctors who have full-time practices, been answering questions for years, and then when they decide they want to back away from their office-based practice, they go, you know what, I can now start. Now that I'm backing off my hours in the office, I can come join you and expand my practice by staying busy. We've had doctors who've completely retired from their office-based practice who've come and joined us and say, I want to keep doing this just 20 hours a week, or maybe even full-time, but they are saying, this is a transition for me to move away from the hassles and the rigors of managing an office or having a salaried position in a corporate-driven medical environment, and instead have retained control myself over my practice, my patients, and I can do that virtually. And I can do that from the comfort of wherever I want to be, whether that's when I'm on vacation in the Bahamas. Bahamas is a bad example. If you're out of the country, it turns out you can't see Medicare patients, but you can see all but Medicare.
Yeah,
if you're
U.S. Virgin Islands, maybe.
But you have the freedom to be where you want to be within the country and continue to give care.
Yeah, that's great. We actually recently interviewed someone who was in that exact situation. He had started a practice, sold it into a larger network, and now just sees patients, virtually on demand as he wishes, and writes books in between. It's fun.
We're certainly seeing an expanded understanding and awareness of how virtual care is an important complement to care. From the patient perspective, I think you've heard me say before that if everything someone needs can be delivered to them virtually, why would they want it any other way? The convenience of getting care on your device from where you are versus the hassles associated with traveling to and dealing with the process of getting into the doctor's office there's so many worlds apart. Now, obviously, there are things for which you need to be in the office, but if you don't need to be in the office, why would you want to be?
You heard it here. You heard it here first, folks. Dr. Jeff, I'd love to give a final sound bite. It seems like you guys are fixing the primary care shortage by fixing the job satisfaction of the primary care physician. So I'd love just a final sound bite, that drop the mic moment. So
I guess the last point you're alluding to is that we have a crisis of shortage of primary care, and it's driven by both the expanding need for care, but also by the lack of supply of primary care doctors. And the primary care job has been undervalued, and doctors are leaving primary care. The opportunity for doctors to have a better job that they enjoy more by giving virtual care is a way of expanding the pool of doctors who want to give virtual care, and makes it more efficient for those doctors to see patients. So I do believe that virtual primary care is an important part of the solution to our shortage of primary care in America.
Awesome. You guys heard it here first, folks. Jeff and folks at HealthTap are tackling the primary care physician shortage. It's not a shortage of good physicians, but it's a shortage of jobs that ultimately help them see more patients, feel more valued, either in the comfort of their home with the internet connection, seeing patients that are also in the comfort of their home with the internet connection, and sort of bringing that job description and that job title to the 21st century. So thank you very much, Jeff. I'm going to stop the recording here. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, appreciate it.